Christian Horner might just be plotting the most unexpected revenge arc in modern F1 history. For a man who spent 2 decades building Red Bull Racing into a powerhouse, getting ousted wasn't just a career shakeup, it was personal. And now, the paddock's buzzing with rumors that Horner's about to flip the whole grid on its head. Not with words, but with a move so strategic, so poetic, it could sting Red Bull in ways they never imagined. Now imagine this. After getting shown the door by the very team he helped transform, Horner shows up on the other side of the fence, not just as a team principal, but with real power, maybe even partial ownership of a direct competitor. The 2 names being whispered the loudest, Alpine and Aston Martin. And let's be real, both of them are hungry. Hungry for structure, hungry for leadership, and most importantly, hungry for someone who knows how to win. Let's talk Alpine first. They're not just desperate, they're drowning. A proud name in F1 history, but right now, they're stuck in the mud, playing catch up with teams who figured it out years ago. That's where Horner fits perfectly. The man knows how to take chaos and turn it into championships. He did it once with Red Bull. And Alpine knows that. That's why insiders say they're not just offering a job, they're ready to hand him the keys to the kingdom. Not just team principal, but something bigger, something that lets Horner call the shots on a deeper level. But here's where it gets even juicier. Alpine might be putting parts of their operation up for sale. You see where this is going. With the right financial partner could actually become part owner. That's not a comeback, that's an ambush. Especially after how Red Bull allegedly tossed him aside once the political winds shifted. With ownership comes power, and with power comes the ultimate form of payback. The question is, does he have the backing to pull it off? Bernie Ecclestone, his old friend and one of the most seasoned minds in the sport, seems skeptical. Bernie says it straight, unless Horner finds someone willing to bankroll his return, becoming Alpine's top dog might just be a pipe dream. But let's not underestimate Christian. He's not the kind of guy who waits around for an opportunity. He creates one. And if Alpine's plan doesn't pan out, there's still the other player in the shadows, Aston Martin. This team is not here to mess around anymore. They've got money, ambition, and big names flooding in. Newey, Coel, Honda. It's becoming a magnet for heavyweights, so naturally, Horner's name has entered that conversation too, especially since Aston's leadership has been quietly assembling what looks like a direct Red Bull rival. But that possibility hits a roadblock. Adrian Newey, the man Horner worked alongside for years, the engineering genius behind Red Bull's dominance. Newey recently joined Aston Martin, and while their history goes deep, so does the tension. Their final months at Red Bull weren't exactly sunshine and rainbows. Word is Newey left partly because of the internal power struggles Horner was involved in, and now they might be asked to work side by side again? That's complicated. Still, there's a wild card, their personal bond. Newey is actually godfather to one of Horner's children. They were recently spotted together at an Oasis concert of all places, which if nothing else proves the door isn't completely shut. But friendships in F1 are slippery. Today's concert buddy might be tomorrow's boardroom rival. And for Horner, choosing between Alpine and Aston Martin isn't just about money or influence, it's about legacy. Because after everything, he's not just looking to return, he wants to rise higher, with control, with power, and maybe with vengeance. Alpine isn't just dangling a seat, they're practically offering a throne. And in this chaotic F1 landscape, that matters. Their operation is in shambles. Constant leadership shakeups, underwhelming performance, and drivers who aren't exactly thrilled with the state of things. But that might be exactly why Horner's the perfect fit. He thrives in dysfunction. That's where he builds empires. He's the guy you call when you want to tear everything down and start from scratch, but smarter, leaner, and ruthless. And let's not forget, Christian's got a chip on his shoulder the size of a V6 engine. After Red Bull's inner circle pushed him out, you better believe he's not looking to fade into retirement. No way. This is a guy who still sees himself as a kingmaker, someone who builds dynasties, not babysits midfield disasters. Alpine offers him that blank canvas. And more importantly, they're desperate enough to let him paint however he wants. Now here's where things get spicy. Rumors say Horner doesn't just want to run the team, he wants to own part of it. That's no small ambition, but it's also not out of character. At Red Bull, he reportedly pushed for more control, possibly even equity. That didn't sit well with the Austrian brass, especially once the Verstappen family started tightening their grip on the team's direction. But Alpine? They're vulnerable, financially shaky, publicly under fire, and internally confused. That's the perfect storm for someone like Horner to swoop in, make bold promises, and slowly carve out a chunk of real power. The only problem? Cash. Horner isn't a billionaire. If he wants to step in as a part owner, he's going to need someone with deep pockets who also believes in his vision, and not just any random investor. Someone who understands the ruthless pace and politics of Formula One. That's a rare breed, but if anyone can charm the right backers into making a move, it's Horner. He's built his entire reputation on persuading sponsors, partners, and drivers to bet on him, and most of the time it worked. There's also a name that keeps circling in this Alpine discussion. Flavio Briatore. Yeah, that Flavio. The one who's been dragged back into the scene despite his notorious past. He's now whispering in Alpine's ears again, and guess who he's rumored to be close friends with? Christian. If Flavio's actually calling some of the shots behind the scenes at Alpine, then Horner suddenly has a golden bridge into the heart of the operation. Sure, Flavio's presence is controversial, but in F1, power talks louder than history. Meanwhile, the internal tension between Horner and Pierre Gasly adds another layer to the drama. Gasly, who was once dumped by Red Bull after just 13 races, still remembers the sting. And even though he's publicly praised Horner's leadership and success, there's speculation that he wouldn't be too thrilled about sharing a garage with a man who arguably cut his dreams short. But here's the twist. Gasly might not have a choice. In F1, team bosses come and go, and drivers adapt. If Horner brings results, all that past resentment fades fast. Then there's the political game. Alpine's been fumbling their PR. Fans are frustrated, sponsors are nervous, and the board's losing patience. A big name like Horner, with his championship pedigree, instantly changes the narrative, gives them credibility, it gives them direction, and most of all, it gives them hope. The kind of hope that could finally pull them out of the midfield wasteland and make them feared again. So if Alpine is smart, they'll clear the runway. Because Christian's not just planning a return, he's aiming to take over. Aston Martin might seem like the flashier choice on paper, but beneath the surface, it's a much messier fit for Horner. The team is already stacked with top-tier minds, Adrian Newey, Andy Cowell, and a full-blown Honda partnership. They've got momentum, budget, and ambition. What they don't have is space for another big personality trying to steer the ship, especially not one with a history of internal power struggles and a reputation for playing political chess like a grandmaster. The real obstacle is Newey. Their shared past at Red Bull was a cocktail of brilliance and tension. While the two produced championship-winning cars together, the backstage battles told a different story. Newey eventually tapped out, citing the toxic environment and internal conflicts, many of which, insiders claim, had Horner's fingerprints all over them. So now, with Newey settling into his new role at Aston Martin, the idea of reuniting under one roof? That's a stretch. Even with a Godfather title and an Oasis concert hangout, old wounds don't heal that neatly in Formula One. Lawrence Stroll, Aston's head honcho, isn't the type to give up control either. He's building a legacy for his son Lance and doesn't need someone like Horner walking in and potentially hijacking the spotlight. Christian doesn't just take jobs, he takes control. That's why any serious talks between the two sides would be laced with power dynamics, egos, and questions about who really runs the show. And unless Lawrence is willing to loosen his grip, and there's no evidence he is, it's hard to imagine Horner fitting in cleanly. Still, Aston Martin isn't out of the picture entirely. Their aggressive moves in the past, poaching talent, pushing for podiums, and signing massive deals, prove they're willing to make bold plays. If they see Horner as the missing piece in their championship puzzle, they might just take the risk. And if that happens, it would turn the paddock into a circus. Horner, Newey, Honda, and Stroll all under the same roof? That's not a team, that's a power struggle waiting to explode. But maybe Christian isn't just focused on team roles anymore. Some rumors suggest he's even looked beyond the pit lane towards the FI, a governing role perhaps, something that gives him leverage without the grind of the race weekend. The idea sounds logical, but it doesn't match the man. Horner isn't built for paperwork and politics from a distance. He lives for the chaos, the strategy, the elbows-out war of paddock politics. He wants to win, not manage rules from a leather chair in Geneva. What he really wants, according to those closest to him, is something that blends authority with identity. He wants to be more than just a hired boss. He wants to belong to something he builds again: ownership, leadership, respect, and a stage big enough to make Red Bull look over their shoulder every Sunday afternoon. That's why everyone's watching his next move so closely, not just because of what he'll do, but what it'll mean. If he lands at Alpine and gets partial ownership, it sets off a domino effect. The other team bosses might panic, investors will circle, and Red Bull, for all their current dominance, might have to deal with the ghost of their own past haunting them on the podium. The story of Christian Horner isn't over. It's just changing chapters. Whether it's Alpine, Aston Martin, or something none of us see coming, one thing's clear: he's not done with Formula One, not by a long shot. Because when a man like Horner has something to prove, the grid better be ready. He's not coming back to compete, he's coming back to conquer.